Hey, everybody. Welcome to Boss Talks. This is episode 87. We have a great guest today, Katherine Maestas, and she is out of Utah, which I believe is my first Utah guest. So I'm super stoked to have that and have her represent. You may have seen her on LinkedIn. She's pretty active, and some of her posts do get some love. So it's always fun to see what she has to say and all the things that she's got going on and how she's killing it in property management. She is a area manager, and that's a recent thing for her. She got promoted here recently. Only 3 years in property management as a whole, and she's with Next Property Management. So pretty cool that all that's happening for her. She's finding success. And so I'd love to hear more from her and share what drives her, makes her the boss in Utah. So we'll get to that soon. But before we do, again, I'm Evan Happel, your host. I'm with Community Boss. We have a great solution for you when it comes to parking, amenities, and mapping. We have some ways to make it a better place to live for your residents so that they can enjoy and fairly use their community and also share it with their guests. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. We can also help generate some revenue for you. So by all means, bring your questions my way. But today, it's about Katherine, so let's get to it. All right, Katherine.
That was a very humbling intro. Thank you.
Oh, but you are though.
No,
so
you're good. That was awesome.
Yeah, you're doing great. I mean, I've seen your posts. Not everybody's stuff gets love, So it means that what you're putting out there is things that people relate to and like to interact with. And I say, like, unless content has some substance to it, most people aren't too stoked to give it the love. So good job on that. But when it comes to just doing work, I mean, you were at some other types, like you were not in property management for a long time. And if I look back, I think you were in the fitness industry and maybe some other stuff. And even before all that, and we can touch on all this individually here shortly after we get through some questions. But I mean, even more interesting is, and I think this is something that, I mean, you went on mission for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So that had to be like, when you want to say sales training, like knocking door to door, talking to strangers. Like, I would say anybody that's done that has got some, I mean, not only thick skin, but
to say the least.
Also learn how to talk to people when they maybe aren't very receptive.
Correct. Yes. When I was serving as a mission, so each mission has what's called a mission president, and they're basically the leader of the entire mission. And our mission president had worked in real estate for, I want to say, like over 30 or 35 years. And when we would have training meetings with him, he'd always tell us, like, we are in the people business. This is a sales job.
Yeah.
Like bottom line. Obviously, there were spiritual undertones to it and things like that, but he would frequently tell us, this is a people business. This is very much a sales job. Your companion, you may not get along with them. How are you going to communicate? Do you guys know how to communicate in an effective way? How about communicating to these people that you're knocking on doors with? How are you going to handle rejection? How are you going to handle a question that you don't know how to answer? What about the weekly reports that I need from you? Are you going to get those to me in a timely manner? And just little things like that. So that is why I always put my missionary service on my resume, because it's like, listen, there was so much more involved than that, than just trying to get people to listen to our message.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I'd fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's more to pull from that as well. But before we get into it anymore, my 3 questions I'll ask are, the first one is, when it comes to building community, in your professional and personal life, how do you go about that?
Well, I think a big thing, and I think people see this a lot on my LinkedIn posts, is there's a little bit more personability to my posts. I talk about the fact that I'm a working mom, and being a mom is the hardest job that I have. But I make posts like that because I know I'm not the only working parent. And people, at the end of the day, people want to know that you care. People don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And so when it comes to building that sense of community, either in working relationships or in personal relationships, it's fun watching people light up when you talk to them about themselves. And regardless of who the person is, people love to talk about themselves. And so I'm always trying to dig as many layers as I can. And as much as they want to share with me, it's tell me about you. You're not just my leasing agent, but tell me about you. What's your background? What makes you tick? What are your interests? And I know when people ask those types of questions of tell me about you, it feels very blasé. So we always give the surface level kind of questions and answers. But I think as you start to dig deeper, you can really get to know a person, and people they appreciate feeling seen, valued, and heard, which can build that sense of community and team atmosphere. But if you're just there to honestly just do business and nothing more, I really don't think you're going to see success, because you're not helping your team feel like a team or being acknowledged that they're even human.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people, they do want it when it comes to their job, or even the people you serve, they want to feel like they aren't just dollar signs.
100%. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say in the multifamily space, that goes with our residents as well. You know, I made a post just the other day about how I have a prospective resident that's being reassigned from overseas. The only reason I know that is because I asked her and I talked to her about her long before we even started talking about the apartment she was looking for. And various other residents that I can list off, but it's at the end of the day, it's because I'm asking, and I do believe that connection when it comes to the multifamily space, that's our second best amenity that we offer. I just gave a tour to someone yesterday. I asked her, what's making you move? And she said, I can never get a hold of management and they don't even know who I am. And yet, well, Fair Housing, I'm not going to say the person's name that I toured, obviously, but I, got to know her a little bit. And she works for the state of Utah, training principals and teachers on how to handle difficult situations when it comes to their students. But if I don't take the time to ask her those things, then yeah, she's just another number to me. And that's where I think we fall victim to that in multifamily or just any industry, is we forget to connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have the ability to make that a differentiator, because if some people are going fully to tech, which I doubt that's for most cases happening, but
Yeah.
we have an opportunity to have people on site, and if trained well, they can be a huge asset in making people feel more important as they're looking for a home.
Yeah. When I worked for Cottonwood Residential for a short time, and they kind of spearheaded and kind of revolutionized how they did tours, and they kind of coined self-guided tours. At least maybe just within their business. I'm sure maybe there's other businesses that do it, but they did self-guided tours. And one thing that I noticed was I didn't want that to be an excuse for the leasing agents to not connect with our prospective residents. It would be really easy to just hand them a map. Here's the apartments you're going to go look at. Here's a key fob to get into the amenities. Text me with any questions or concerns. And I got my leasing agents trained to the point where they knew they needed to get up from their desk, laptop in hand, go sit down at one of the beautiful booths that we just built, and go get to know the person before you send them off on their self-guided tour. And I really believe that was a huge asset for us, is they didn't fall victim to letting that just be an excuse of not doing well in their job. And it's the same with all of this tech that's coming to the industry. Is yes, we've got AI and Chat GPT and everything else that can help us in our jobs, but we still are working with people, and we're still helping people find a home, roof over their head. Let's get to know them and not just fall victim to honestly being lazy in our industry. All of the tech directions are super exciting, but don't forget the basics. Use all of that tech stuff to your advantage.
Yeah. A tool, not a replacement.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. All right. So thanks for answering that question. Next question. When it comes to you having somebody over to your home and showing them hospitality, how would you do that? Like through what you feed them?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure if my husband is listening in on this little podcast, he's probably laughing at what the answer to that question is. I mean, I grew up in a household where the kitchen was like the lifeline of the household. My mom's dream is to go to culinary school because of how much she loves to cook. So I feel like I have that as well. I just don't get to do it as often as I would like to. But I love baking bread. As you know, if the other dream is to be barefoot and pregnant and bake bread and just have a farm, I guess. But I definitely I love doing home cooked meals. Home baked goodies is what I love to do. But then also just I have a 1.5-year-old, so I'm not going to apologize that her toys are all over our living room, not because it's a mess, but just this is her home. It's very well lived in, but you guys are welcome to feel at home as well. We definitely have that open door policy, I guess you can say, where you've gone into homes where it definitely feels like you can't relax while you're in there. And my husband and I definitely don't have that type of household. We love having family and friends over because we love that our home, in a sense, feels like a safe haven for all of our friends and family as well.
Oh, that's good. So is there a food in particular that now you don't have to make it. Let's be clear. You could order out.
Well, now I have to make it for everybody and everyone's welcome to come over. There's one food that I do love to make, and it's something that we actually do for only like birthdays and Christmases. And it's kind of a family tradition on my mom's side, but it's a Dutch breakfast. It's called Ebbelskivers. The best way I can explain it is it's like a pancake in a ball shape, but it's a completely different recipe that you have to follow. You can't use a pancake mix, but it's a Dutch recipe. And so for Christmas, we had Christmas over here at our place, and my kitchen was a disaster because I was just making Ebbelskivers all morning with eggs and bacon and fruit and everything else. And so I love making that just because of the special undertones that little meal has.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that would, something a little more homey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. And then if you partake, if not, it can be a different beverage. But if you do drink any kind of caffeine, what's your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Oh, man. Definitely a coffee snob for sure. I've got my cup right next to me here. So you can't go wrong with a good old cup of coffee. That's for sure. I don't do a whole lot of caffeine, to be honest with you. So I would say it's definitely just going to be good old fashioned coffee.
All right. Do you like it black or you got a special drink?
Oh gosh, no. My husband loves it black, and I think that's just nothing but hot bean water. So that's just absolutely gross. So definitely more of the latte fan where it's got a good sense of creamer. I need my coffee to almost be white than black or brown. So
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for answering. You made it through. Those are the questions. And so now we can get to the meat of things and what you really wanted to speak about. But I'd love to get into a little bit more of your background, how you got to where you are, some of the things you've talked about regularly, or the things that some people would say are the roadblocks or the things that are hard in life that you've faced but overcome. So I'd love to just kind of tackle all of it to your comfort level, obviously.
Yeah,
but
of course. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I kind of mentioned to you last week when I, was sending everything over to you, I've kind of learned over time that I don't believe we as people are the sum of what we've been through. I believe we are the sum of how we have handled what we have been through. There's that phrase of no regrets. I wouldn't go back and change anything. Otherwise, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I kind of push against that narrative just a little bit because I don't believe that. I can very much think of things in my life that I do regret, whether they were choices of my own, especially that I made, and I had to suffer serious consequences that lasted years. And I would go back and change some of those things. However, I am not who I am today because I went through that thing. I am who I am today because of the choices that I made in response to that thing. And I believe that applies to so many different things in life. And I do believe that everyone has the opportunity to rise up and quote the best Disney movie in the world, be more than what they have become. And that's a Lion King reference if you don't know it. Naturally, I pick Lion King because I love lions, but I believe people can do that, but they do that through their choices, not just so much with what they have been through. I think people go through things and then they just they don't change. And I think people kind of use those life experiences a little bit as a crutch to not change and evolve and develop and become something better. And then 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, they're no different than, 5 minutes after the thing happened. I think people are afraid of the vulnerability that comes with changing behaviors. It is not fun looking yourself in the mirror and saying you're the one that needs to change. Otherwise, this cycle will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything particular that you've had to make changes to get to where you are?
I definitely think so. 7 years ago, and I won't go into the details of it, but there was a life situation that was happening. I had to move back home to Utah, and I realized what I was facing was going to be a very long and difficult road. And so I started tackling that thing, started healing and working through it. And then I remember it's like, okay, you're making all this great progress, but there's one roadblock that you're refusing to face. And I'll never forget it. I was living at home in my mom's basement and I was standing in the bathroom and I couldn't look myself in the mirror because I knew what the problem was. And I knew it was myself. And it's like, you're reading all these books, you're subscribed to all these different newsletters and blogs and things like that to help you overcome this challenge. But there's one challenge that you're not wanting to face. And so I remember looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, let's do this. It's your turn to deal with your stuff. We can run circles around this one thing that were the actions of somebody else, and we're going to keep working on that. But you have to acknowledge what your behaviors and thought processes and actions are and how they're actually stunting your growth. And that was by far the hardest part of any of that process. Just recognizing, like, you procrastinate a lot. Sometimes you're kind of lazy. You are afraid of confrontation and you don't communicate well. You either shut down or you kind of are explosive. We need to find some type of like stasis. But when you're not willing to look at yourself and see what you do wrong, in my opinion, we really can't complain or be frustrated about the state of a relationship, a job, life, whatever else.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. It does start with us individually.
Yeah.
It is easy for people to just be like, well, that other person needs to change or whatever it is. And they may.
Yeah.
But there's also like the instances where we need to change or move. Like maybe we just need to get away from a situation and also improve ourselves.
Correct.
So, yeah, there's definitely a lot there because because it can take over when things happen to us. We can let it either consume us and hold us down, or we can try to move beyond it and heal.
It can either make you or break you. It was so 19 years ago, I had a cousin that was killed in a car accident. We were both 15 years old. We were both the oldest grandchildren. His accident took place like a block away from his house. He was almost home. And after it all happened and the family was notified and everything else, my mom pulled her brother aside and said, you don't need to decide right now, but at some point you need to decide if this is going to make you or break you. And as I've thought about that advice that she gave him, and as I've applied it to my own life, I've come to the conclusion, it's okay if you let something break you, but don't let it keep you broken.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all going to go through things that are earth shattering. It could be the death of a loved one. Maybe it's just losing a job. I don't know what it is, but all of us, I think, are going to go through something, and it is okay to let it break you, but it is not okay to stay broken. And at some point you need to decide you're going to let it now make you and shape you. But again, it goes back to you are making a decision to let it make you and not define who or what you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's big deal. And I mean, I think that kind of hits at your first point of like mindset, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
You can have control over your mindset, I guess is
Yes.
the point.
Yes.
And you were big into fitness and things, and maybe you're still into fitness, but you're just not in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but a big part of fitness is mindset. When you're playing a sport, getting in shape, whatever, like if your head's not in it, if you don't make decisions to commit to things, that's a big part of it as
Mm-hmm.
well. So
Oh,
what
yep.
else?
Yep.
Yeah, what else did you want to speak about on that one?
I still very much am involved in the fitness world. I don't work in that industry anymore. But one of the things that I do love about it is, people think it's about the physical aspect of trying to lose weight, get skinny, have muscle, whatever. And it's like, that's just kind of a perk, in my opinion. I can't really stop my body from changing because of what I'm doing in the gym. But I have learned that if I can do hard things in there, then I can do hard things outside the gym. But it is very much going to start with my mindset. Can I power through these burpees even though I really don't want to do them? It's not about the burpee. It's about the mindset of why I don't want to do it. That same mindset methodology applies everywhere else. That's why I frequently will post sports analogies or military analogies, because it starts very much with your mindset. When I worked in the fitness industry, I was promoted to a sales team lead. And the club that I was promoted to was the smallest in the company and was the worst performing in the entire company. And when I got the promotion, my area director even said, like, I don't expect you to do well. This is really just to get your feet wet and just kind of like become a sales lead and kind of learn how to do it. But like,
Yeah, at least they set the bar really
at
low.
least, hey, the bar was so low that I don't even think I was stepping over it. I was just walking right across it. It was just the expectation to do well was absolutely not there. And I got there, and it was really disappointing to see that the rest of the staff, for lack of a better term, very much kind of just had this loser mindset. They were okay with losing. They knew that it's like we're one of the smallest clubs, so we don't have all of the amenities and all the features and everything that everyone wants, though we suck that way. We also suck because we just don't perform. And it was just like, and you guys are okay with that? And it's like, well, yeah. And so it was very much like almost a bench warmers mindset. And it was like, this is wild. You guys are just okay with the gym not being clean. You're okay with our members not liking it here because we have a very sad and kind of loser mentality. On top of that, you just don't even care how we perform. That's insanity to me. And so that mindset was very much what I had to change first when I first got there, before I could even focus on producing and increasing our sales. Was like, we have got to change this mindset of just being okay with losing, because this isn't, we can't do this. And my first month as a sales lead with that club finished second in the entire company in sales and production. I still have the text messages saved in my phone from the different VPs and things like that reached out to me. Even my area director was jokingly said, he was like, I told you I didn't expect you to win. And it's like, well, then you hired the wrong person to not win, essentially. And there's various other stories and lessons that came from that. But I had to change everyone's mindset first and help them understand why this mindset is not going to work moving forward. Subpar performance. Jocko Willink talks about subpar performance. And if we accept that as the standard, then subpar performance is the standard. But prepare for your team to push against you if you try to set an elevated sense of standard, because that's not the norm for them.
Yeah. And how much so what gave you this mentality? Is anything tied to, like, I mean, to a degree, like what you had to do for 2 years as a missionary? Like, I mean, every day you were faced with probably unpleasantness,
Yeah.
and um, you could either have a bad attitude and
Hmm.
approach it that way or not. So yeah, what?
Well, and serving as a missionary, I mean, it's the same tasks every single day. It's
Right.
the only thing that's different is the people that you're meeting, and so there's kind of an unknown that way of we don't know who we're going to meet today. We don't know if someone is going to be open and receptive to our message and what we're trying to share, or if someone's going to call us the Antichrist today. Like, I don't know. I don't know if someone's going to wish they could tar and feather Mormons still. I don't know what I'm going to be running into. But
Yeah.
the same monotonous tasks are the same every single day. And that, thinking of doing that for 18 months to 2 years sounds really just, I can't believe someone would do that for 18 months. But it's just today wasn't a good day, but what are we going to do to make this next day better? And it's always going to circle back to behaviors. I knew tons of missionaries that wasted their time and their proselytizing hours by hanging out at somebody's house that was a member of their congregation. Yet me and my companion are the ones that are out there in 100-degree heat in Atlanta, Georgia, knocking on doors, talking to people that we just walk by. I mean, I remember one area that I served in, we decided we're not going to drive the car today. We're just going to be out there on foot and have a better presence, because when we're in the car, people can't see us. We're sacrificing the car today. And I can't say that brought, in a sense, like fruitful numbers. And, we met all these amazing people and had massive results, but I think it was just more of what it taught us as missionaries to have those critical thinking skills of seeing, okay, this is what we did today. We have no numbers to show for it. Clearly that methodology doesn't work. So let's put together, some ideas of what we're going to do differently tomorrow. And that's where we came up with the idea of we're not driving the car tomorrow. And then the next day, we're going to cancel all these different appointments that are with people that are already members. Why am I going to go waste my time hanging out with them? That's just a reflection of, I don't want to deal with the hard work that this actually is. So again, it always circled back to us as the individual and what we were doing that wasn't working. And then are we going to have enough critical thinking skills to come up with something that just might work, that is going to require a little bit of vulnerability and sacrifice on our end?
Yeah, absolutely. And how, fast forward to where you are now and jumping into, next was your first company and now you're back to it. But
Yeah.
you jumped into property management. I guess, how did you land there? And
Yeah.
how has this mindset served you well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked in the fitness industry for 2 years, and I had no intention of leaving it. I was loving what I was doing as a sales lead, and I eventually wanted to work my way up to becoming a general manager and then an area director and a regional and everything else. But with COVID, the fitness industry got hit really hard. Gyms immediately had to shut down. They could not reopen. And we were furloughed from our jobs until essentially further notice, which was really daunting. I was unemployed for 7.5 months. I sent out 972 applications during those 7.5 months and only had 3 interviews out of those 972. And one of them happened to be for a leasing agent role. And I knew nothing about leasing. I knew nothing about renting. I was actually really intimidated at the thought of doing a leasing agent position, because it was like, but that involves like the law and really important stuff. And I really don't want to screw that up. Like, it's okay if you drop a dumbbell at work. It's not okay if you screw up someone's lease agreement. So I really just don't, I don't know if I can do this. But I was able to, in a sense, sell myself on just the fact that I love connecting with people and being able to communicate in an effective way. And I think a couple of days later, I found out I got the job, and then it's been home free ever since. That's essentially how I got into multifamily.
Yeah.
As far as my mindset and the way that I operate, again, it kind of just goes back to this. I think I made a post the other day about how I never got to be a part of a sports team growing up, but I definitely tried out for tons of different things. And so I can't say that there's one specific thing that gave me this mindset. And maybe if we dug back, maybe we could find where it all stems from and comes from. But it's just, I don't know how to quit, and I don't know how to stop. If I hit a failure, I want to understand why I failed, and then address whatever I need to address to make sure that doesn't happen again. It's kind of like that phrase, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I only know how to stand up, essentially. And so with leasing and being in the multifamily industry, that's just kind of been my approach. When I started as a leasing agent, is just, I'm just doing what I know how to do, which is how to connect with people. I don't know the product. I'll learn the product. That's not hard to do, but I know how to connect with people. And that's a skill set that can be very difficult to teach. And then that's when we saw applications rise. And that's when I got promoted to property manager. And my first property that I ever managed, that completely shifted. And then I left that position and was privileged to be awarded a lease up in downtown Salt Lake City and had incredible success with that. And so there's been a lot of hopping around in the multifamily industry, and that's just because different opportunities keep coming and I want to take advantage of them. But my methodology is still the same, regardless of where I'm going. And if I'm being sent somewhere that, hey, it's a problem property, or it's a problem team, or hey, they're just not performing, the first thing I'm going to tackle is everyone's mindset, because I know what the problem is. It's everyone's mindset. That has to change first before you want invoices to be submitted and paid on time.
Yeah.
The mindset has to change first before we can tackle the severe level of delinquency at this property. And it's not just with the staff, it's the mindset of the residents as well. If the residents know that you're not going to try and collect their money, you're not going to try and serve them notices and whatever else, that falls on you for not correcting that mindset. And so that is just my methodology and my approach with the on-site team, myself, and the residents as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So similarly to fitness, I mean, there's certain clubs that have amenities that are really great. They may have tanning beds and they have massagers and this, that, and the other. And then you had a situation where you didn't have these amenities. So similar to that, within property management, you have some communities that are just chock full of amenities and beautiful, landscaping, and the clubhouse is fantastic, and they have fitness centers and all the things. But then you have some that have none of that. And so just like what you did within the fitness world, what is it that you think people can do to sell something that is quote unquote subpar in their mind? They come into it, they're like, I'm not super excited about this community, so why would a resident be?
Right.
Well, there you're losing, right? So how do you approach that?
Yeah. So when I started at that really small club that literally had nothing to it, I needed to show the staff, but most importantly, the members of that club, the level of care that I had for the club. Obviously, you guys are working out here for a reason. No, I don't have classes. No, I don't have the tanning beds. I don't have a pool, steam room, sauna. I don't have all the fixings, but you have a manager that is going to walk the gym floor, and I'm going to put dumbbells away. You have a manager that's going to walk the gym floor, and I'm going to throw away people's paper towels and used water bottles. I'm going to put the foam rollers back where they're supposed to go. I'm going to make sure all of the floor mats are hung up where they are supposed to go. I'm going to color code all of your resistance bands so it's not obnoxious trying to find the equipment that you need to find. This stack of plates over here, you're apparently strong enough to lift it, but not strong enough to put it away. I will go put that away for you. That is still a pet peeve of mine. So if anyone's listening, put your weights away. That's so irritating. And so it's little things like that. And so members started to notice that the staff is starting to take care of the place that I work out at. And that speaks more volumes than having all of the bells and whistles that come with using a gym as an example. In relation to multifamily, the portfolio that I just took over, every single one of my properties is limited in amenities. I have one property out of the 5 that has a swimming pool. Everywhere else does not. It's just apartments. That is it. And And so when people are coming and asking, about amenities, it's no, unfortunately, we don't have those. But they need to see me and my on-site staff walking the community, excuse me, and taking care of the place that they call home. There's plenty of properties that have all of the bells and whistles. They have 8 to 10 different kinds of amenities, and it's this ooh, ah factor.
Mm-hmm.
But are those amenities being well maintained? Do you guys walk the gym and go clean it? Right? You go upstairs to a sky lounge or rooftop lounge, and is the furniture disorganized and disheveled from the previous night's usage? You can have all of those amenities, but if they're not well maintained, why should your residents even care that they even exist?
Right.
And so I try and instill within my team that, hey, we may not be working at a class A, beautiful, gorgeous, all the bells and whistles type of property, but we have to treat this property like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, let's say we get it in the budget that we're building an on-site gym. We're going to build this huge clubhouse. Are the residents going to care if we show that we don't even care about the property right now as it is? And if that's the case, why would they care that we're going to build them this big, beautiful amenity when we're proving we can't even take care of this community as simple and basic as it is? And so I think with on-site teams, you've got to have that luxury, elevated customer service mindset, even if that's not really what your property is, because again, you could have all of those features and all of those amenities, but if you just don't downright care about the property as it is, in my opinion, none of those amenities matter. People want to be taken care of at the place that they call home, regardless of the amenities.
Yeah, I think it goes to show, like, when you drive through a neighborhood, right? There's some people, like, regardless of economic status, right, the amount of money you have, there's neighborhoods where everybody's on the same footing when it comes to how much they have, but different people take care of their homes differently, right?
Right.
You have people, they don't have a lot of money, but they take care of their house. It looks nice. It's pleasant to look at. It's not $1 million house. It's nothing like, crazy, but
Yeah.
it looks nice. And it's like, it's pleasant. It's not noticeable, right? And then you to the neighbor, and their house has 5 cars, and the grass is overgrown, and things maintained, and the siding falling apart, and it's not painted, and whatever, right? So it's like both people they may have the same amount of money,
right?
But it shows
right.
care they have for the place that they have that they call home.
Yeah. Well, and when it comes to the rental community, and even if you're purchasing a home, like there's real estate agents that will tell their clients, go drive the neighborhood after hours. Go drive around 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night and see what the neighborhood's like and see what you think. Because you could go be looking at this beautiful home and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so great. This is the one. You move in and find out it happens to be the party corner, and people are partying until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And it's like, well, I can't leave. I just bought this thing. Like, what do I do? And so when it comes to the rental community, you're insane if you think our prospects are not driving our communities when we're not there. Whether that's in the morning or the evening, or even just in the middle of the day, they're going to notice junkyard type of vehicles just sitting in the parking lot. Why has no one gotten rid of that? Like, why is that there? They're going to notice if trash is being picked up. They're going to notice if animal waste is not being picked up. If there's lights flickering in the carports or the sidings coming off on the building. And to me, that is a reflection of the on-site staff. That is not a reflection of the residents. Yes, the residents need to do a better job taking care of, their animals. You're the one that chose to have the animal. Be a little more responsible and clean up after them and pick up your trash and things like that. But at the end of the day, there's still responsibility for the on-site staff. And if our people see those things that are not being taken care of, that really communicates how the rest of the office operates. If you guys can't pick up trash or take care of this non-working vehicle, are you going to take care of me when I have questions about my lease agreement?
Yeah.
You're going to take care of me when I have a question about my ledger because I'm noticing a charge isn't correct? Because this is a reflection of how I'm going to be taken care of. And right now I'm not loving it. So those little things go a long way.
Yeah. And the thing that I always, regardless, restaurant, retail,
yeah,
housing, it's always, how's your bathroom?
Yeah. There's gas stations I won't go to, like, for that reason. Yeah.
You know, like if you can't clean a bathroom and you're using that,
Correct. Then we've got serious concerns. I can hold it. Thank you. Yeah.
says a
Yeah.
lot.
It does. It totally does. It totally does. Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. I was really big into retail for a while in my
Okay.
career, and bathrooms are a huge deal. Like people, they will go out of their way to shop somewhere knowing that the bathroom is decent.
You know, when we go on, where are you located again, Evan? Are you in
Yeah.
California? Okay.
Yeah.
We have I don't think they're out of Utah yet, but there's a chain gas station called Maverick here in Utah. And you know, if you ever find yourself in Utah, go do a road trip, and I will put money on what I am about to say. They all of their locations are the exact same. They all have the same aesthetic. Every single one of them is clean. The grounds are clean. Some of them have little playgrounds because they're in the middle of Utah. It's the rest stop, the hub rest stop before you keep traveling, whatever. And it is the only gas station. If my husband and I are on a road trip, whatever else, it is the only one that we will stop at, because we know the bathrooms are clean, not only for ourselves, but for when we need to go change our little girl. We know that the grounds are going to be clean when we're going to let her run around and stretch her legs just a little bit. I'm not going across the street to the Flying J or the Chevron, and there's a reason for that. But this company has set a standard that regardless of where our customers are at in their journey, regardless if they're in, you know, the busy suburbs or they're in the middle of nowhere, Utah, our standard needs to be the same. And that kind of stuff, again, speaks volumes to your customer. And to me, that's a massive psychological effect in how you maintain that loyalty in a sense.
Right. No, I think that is very true.
Yeah.
So, and it applies to housing because they're visiting your property, they're looking around, they're going to need to use the restroom in the office.
Yeah.
Not only the rest of the place should be clean, but the bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. It plays a huge role in resident retention. So if you're struggling with your renewals and resident retention and reviews and things like that, how are you taking care of your people? Are you like these people, they aren't homeowners. There's a reason they're choosing to rent. I don't know everyone's situation, but we are the ones responsible for taking care of the property. They live on the inside. They need to help take care of that inside, but there's a reason they're not the ones mowing the lawn. There's a reason they're not the ones picking up the trash and taking care of this community. It very much falls on our shoulders. And if people see that the basics are being neglected, why should they renew with you? You don't answer the phone. You don't review things correctly. You send documents before they're ready to go. You're not taking care of the junkyard that's sitting in your parking lot right now. Why should I renew with you?
Right.
Again, people just want to be taken care of at the end of the day. And if you can't do those basics, in my opinion, you don't get to complain about your renewal ratio.
Totally. And I think this flows right into your next one with leadership and having extreme ownership. Like whatever you're doing, looking at what you have, looking at what you're doing, the job you're doing, regardless of the position you hold, having ownership at what you have in front of you. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
What is it that you have learned? I know you mentioned Jocko. I actually read his book, Extreme Ownership. But yeah, what were your takeaways and how do you apply that for yourself?
You know, one of the neat things with Jocko is he just talks about how everything very much falls on the shoulders of the leader. If your team did not understand, to use Jocko lingo, if your team didn't understand the mission, that is because you as the leader did not communicate effectively. It is not because your team is stupid and incapable of whatever else. You have to look at yourself and the leader and ask yourself if you communicated the plans and mission effectively, and was it able to be executed in the correct way? If not, you need to figure out what you need to do better next time as a leader, communicating effectively, asking better questions, things of that nature. When it comes to extreme ownership, every time I've gone to a new property, new team, staff, whatever else, the first thing that I tell them is I'm never going to ask you guys to do something that I myself am not willing to do. As far as maintenance and things like that, that's going to be a little bit different. I don't have my CPO certification, so I unfortunately can't do pool checks. I don't know how to fix a furnace and a water heater and things like that. So that very much is on you. But I've seen leasing agents submit a work order to the maintenance staff because they found a gum wrapper in the hallway. Okay, why didn't you pick that up? Well, because maintenance is responsible for keeping this property clean. So then we had to have a very serious, like, come to Jesus type of conversation. And just, that is not how this works. You as the leasing agent, I expect to have extreme ownership, not just with leasing, but with this property as a whole. The whole mindset of that's not my job does not work with me in any of my teams ever. I worked for Coach Handbags for a year and a half as a senior sales administrator. And I worked at one of their California locations, and I had a sales guy. We were getting ready to close up the store, and I asked him if he could clean up the back room and if he could go make sure the bathrooms were stocked and cleaned and ready to go for the next day. And he whipped his head back and looked at me, and he was like, that's not my job. And I could feel like the heat rash building on my chest. I could feel my ears burning. I was like, I'm about to explode on this guy. And I said, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And he said, that's not my job. And it's not in my job description to do that. And I said, okay, do you use it though? And he said, well, yeah, of course I do. Where else am I going to go? And I said, well, moving forward, you're going to go to the food court and use the restroom within the mall. And he kind of sat there really quiet for a second, kind of trying to figure out why I was being so overly, I guess, rude and abrasive. And I let him know, if you use it and you work here, you can have a team mentality and you can go help take care of it. But moving forward, if you feel like that is not your job, but you're okay using whatever the thing is, for now, I'm going to ask you to stop using it. I'm going to ask you to clock out because I'm not going to pay you to do something like that. And you can go upstairs to the cafeteria of the mall, and you can use the public restrooms within the facilities of the mall. And he got really upset, huffed and puffed, and went to the back and grabbed the mop and bucket and cleaned the bathroom because he realized he was not going to go walk to the food court to go use the restroom. But again, it's the whole mindset of that's not my job. That's above my pay grade. There are certain things that are above your pay grade, but when it comes to multifamily, picking up trash is not one of them. Taking care of our residents and answering their phone calls and answering their emails and questions or concerns is not one of them. And if you can't have the mindset of a servant mindset, quite honestly, this industry is not for you. And maybe it is for you, and you're just not going to have the type of leader that's going to teach you extreme ownership and accountability. But you know, for example, the portfolio that I just took over, yeah, I could say like, well, that was the previous manager. That wasn't me. Or I could say like, well, that was there before I got here. At this point, it's my portfolio. It's my team. They're my properties. And we're going to take accountability for every single aspect of the property moving forward. Yes, some of these problems existed before we got there, but how are we now going to take extreme accountability, extreme ownership, set a better standard, and move forward with these things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to have a lazy mindset and do the opposite. But at the end of the day, it doesn't get you very far. And I mean, obviously you've moved up quickly for a reason, because you've probably showcased skill set and mindset that is different than some other people.
Yeah. And I know I do things a little bit differently. I know it comes across as very brazen and bold and direct, but I'm at a point in my career, my life, whatever else, that I make no apologies for that. I have a proven track record that these things work, not just in multifamily, but in every facet of sales that I have ever worked in. And if this method and whatever else didn't work, show me how the current method and mindset is working. Yeah. In regards to multifamily, your occupancy is suffering. So teach me your methods that apparently have been working so well for the last 4 to 6 months. Delinquency is absolutely through the roof. So talk to me a little bit about your methodologies, because I don't think they're working. It sounds arrogant to almost say like my methods are better, but at the same time, obviously what we're doing isn't working. So let's try something a little bit different that does feel like we're pushing against the grain, that does feel a little bold or brazen or whatever else, because clearly this isn't working and we need to try something that does push against the narrative just a little bit more. And I think with the direction that multifamily is going, number one, we've got to get back to the basics, but at the same time, we have got to try things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Well, and what are the basics? I mean, I think your end point here, people over product, and we've touched on that a little bit, but I think that, that speaks volumes to the basics, right? Making sure the people, the residents, and even your employees over the product, because I mean, obviously the ownership of a property, they care a lot about the product, the property,
100%. Yeah.
but the product is only as good as the people paying the rent. Or
agreed. Yep. And if we're not taking care of the people, rent is not getting paid, and now you as the owner are not getting paid. So yeah.
So what else about that? You mentioned some TED Talks from Simon Sinek, and then the Golden Circle. What have you learned from those that have been impactful?
I mean, with the Golden Circle that Simon Sinek talks about, he talks about how within sales we tend to get really excited about the product that we're selling, how it's going to help you, and then we try and sell the why. And we keep doing sales that same way. Our product, what it is, we're super excited about it. And this is why you should buy it, because this is what it's going to fix. And this is why you should buy it. And it's like, if you're selling your why and the problem that you fix dead last, you've already lost the sale. And so when it comes to multifamily, renting, whatever else, you've got to try and figure out what problem does this community solve? Yesterday, like I said, I gave a tour to a woman who she is moving because her management team has no idea who she is. She has submitted countless work orders for issues within her home. They're not being addressed, so she's moving. So because I now know that, am I going to make sure that I don't fall victim to doing that same thing as well? I need to make sure that this person is being taken care of and not just focusing on my big, beautiful product that I have. And so when we focus on the why first, and this is what Simon Sinek talks about, is you need to sell your focus and your why first, how it fixes someone's problem, get people excited about the how and the why and the how first, and then get them to the point where they are chomping at the bit to find out what the product is. And then that's kind of the filter of sales that he kind of teaches when it comes to selling a product, and is focusing on a person's why, how you're going to address their why, and then get them excited about the product that is going to address those other issues. But it goes back to, if we're not even taking the time to figure out what that why is, I'm sorry, your apartment's not that special. They can go find somewhere else. The apartment's not the problem. Yeah. The issue is the engagement they are having right now within the first 30 seconds of talking to you.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much to be said for good customer service and talking to people well. So it's definitely
absolutely. Absolutely.
So to kind of wrap it up. So recently you posted how you got a new car. And that was a big milestone thing that you were working towards and a goal. What is it that put that in your head initially, and what was it like to finally meet that goal?
Yeah. The goal kind of started about 8 years ago. Was going through a very serious life change that I had to move back home, live in my mom's basement, and I didn't honestly have 2 nickels to rub together. I was working 4 part-time jobs because I was not in a place mentally to take on a full-time type of role. And so I was working 4 part-time jobs. I was cleaning people's houses. I was working as a nanny, and then I worked 2 little part-time retail gigs. And I just remember thinking like that there's got to be more to life than this. This cannot be how things just end up for me. I can't fall into that pattern of that life situation again. this cannot be what my financial state is going to be for the rest of my life, where I am scrimping and saving and living paycheck to paycheck. My bank account, December of 2017, had negative $758 in there. And with the little 4 part-time gigs that I was working, I told all of them, you cannot pay me through direct deposit. I need a check, or I need a cash, because I knew if it goes into direct deposit, I can't use it. Thankfully, it's bringing that negative balance down, but that's my gas money. That's my money to get to these jobs and take care of other debts. I remember having to block so many different collection agencies on my phone because I was getting so many phone calls from different debt collectors. And it just got to a point where it's like, what is the point of answering this phone call? I don't have the money. I don't have it. I remember having $15 in cash. I had a 10 and a 5, and I needed to put gas in my car, but I also knew that my menstrual cycle was coming and I needed supplies. And I remember going to Walmart and standing in the aisle and looking at everything. And I just started crying, because it was like, okay, a box of tampons is $8. It's literally going to be $15 to fill up my car, to be able to get to my jobs, to make this money. I cannot afford both. And I just completely fell apart. It was just like, I cannot believe that these are the things I am having to stress about right now, but this will not be my life. I cannot do this. So I created like this little vision board and put how much of a salary I wanted to make. And I keep getting emotional. I'm sorry. I printed off a picture of a BMW and I put it on my vision board. And I said, one day I'm going to own one, because it's not about the material stuff. It's not about, I need to have a status symbol, but that's going to be a symbol if I made it, because I can afford it now. I'm not the girl crying in the Walmart aisle that she can't afford tampons and gas money. I'm going to be the girl that finally makes it and is driving a car that is so much more than just being a name brand car. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple of instances over the last 8 years where I could tell I wanted to impulse buy it. I would show a picture to my husband and be like, look, I designed it online. It's so pretty. This is what it looks like. Let's just get it. Let's just get it. And I realized you're not ready for it. It's just trying to fulfill that need of those feelings you felt a couple of years ago. You haven't arrived yet. And so I kept putting it on the back burner. And a year ago, we started seriously looking at new cars for me. And we just couldn't find like the one. And with the state of the economy and everything else, it was like, never mind, we'll just keep the 2017 Toyota Corolla. It's not a big deal. It's fine. It's whatever. And I got to a point where last year I gave up on the goal of the BMW, and it was just like, it's fine. I'll get a stupid minivan. I'll be that mom. I'll do it. It's fine. And I decided to look one more time on Facebook Marketplace, and just there's got to be someone out there that's selling one. And I looked up the model that I wanted, and I mean, long story short, we went and took it for a couple of test drives. And when I was driving it, my husband looked over at me and he kind of laughed, and he was like, you look the same way I did when I test drove my truck. And I just laughed, and I was like, yeah, this is, I love this car. I love it. And we got all of the financing figured out. And my husband was phenomenal when we went to go pick up the car. He just kind of hung back because he knew that this was a moment I had been working towards for 8 years. And they handed me the keys and said, enjoy, she's yours. And we pulled it out of their driveway, and I went and parked next to my husband, and my husband looked at me and was like, how does this feel? And I literally couldn't even respond. And my overall feeling was, I wish I could go back to 25, 26-year-old Katherine and tell her that she did it. The car is yours. You did it. You don't have a negative balance in your bank account anymore, and you don't have debt collectors calling you and all of the other stuff you were trying to work through. You've healed from it. You have an amazing husband. You have a beautiful 1.5-year-old little daughter, an amazing job, an incredible career path. And I am so goddamn proud of you for doing it. And that car is sitting in my garage right now. And those feelings come every single time I open the door to leave for work every day, is I cannot believe that car is sitting in my garage, because it's more than a car. It's symbolic of all of the hard work I have put in to being to where I am today.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that story. I know a lot of people saw when you posted it and they connected with it then.
Yeah.
But it's great to hear kind of the backstory behind it, and you know really what it meant to you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a huge goal that was accomplished, and it goes back to my belief that we are a reflection of the choices that we make. And I don't believe that goal would have come to fruition if I just was not willing to make the choices that I did 8 years ago. That this BMW is not something that just off the cuff I just went and bought one. This is 8 years in the making, but it is a reflection of my choices, which is why I am such a believer in, you are not what happens to you, but you are how you choose to respond to what happens to you. And given the fact that that car is sitting in my garage right now, I think it's a good indicator of the choices I have made and how I have chosen to respond to what life has thrown at me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, good job. First of all.
Thank you. She's a beauty. If you haven't seen it, go look at the post.
Yep. No, great job. And thanks for sharing today. Thanks for being on Boss Talks. Yeah. And you really are killing it. You're being a boss at what you're doing. So I just want you to know that. And I hope we can continue staying in contact. And just like Katherine jumped on here, shared her story, shared what makes her drive to be better, do better, and motivate others. I want you to be on this show too. So if you're a boss, if you're killing it, up until recently, she was quote unquote just a community manager. She got promoted, but when we connected, she was still a community manager. It was a recent promotion. Yeah. So this isn't about having a title. This is about really owning what you're doing and the role you have. And if you are killing it at what you're doing and the role you have, regardless of being high up in a company or whatever it is, if you're just starting out, you're a leasing agent, you're a maintenance tech, you're a community manager, this is a platform for you as well. So Katherine, thank you so much again for being here. This has been Boss Talks, episode 87. And next week, we're going to keep on rolling. So check us out next Wednesday. Today, Tuesday, deviated from our typical scheduling, but went back to Wednesday next week. I'm going to actually be in Austin, Texas tomorrow for a student housing conference. So if you're going to be there, you're listening, I'll see you. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.